And we're live. It is Friday, the 4th of July, about which I will have more to say in a moment. It is the year of our Lord 2025. It is 8 o'clock a.m. The sun is shining. The birds are chirping. It's a federal holiday. It's going to be a great freaking day. And you ask why I'm wearing a WITAOD hat, and the answer, of course, is that the estimable Anna Bauer is going to be joining us, assuming she's woken up. I have had no contact from her this morning, so it may turn into one of those days that y'all just need to step up. But in the meantime, we're going to give her a few minutes. I want to talk about the 4th of July under enemy occupation in Washington, D.C. And, you can treat this as a metaphor for something, or you can treat it as literal, take it seriously but not literally, or you can take it literally if you like. I take the 4th of July very seriously. It's one of my favorite holidays of the year. I like it because, first of all, I love blowing things up. And, holidays that are celebrated by making things go boom make my heart go pitter-patter. Guy Fawkes Day, which happens to be my birthday, the 4th of July. They're cool holidays. Celebratory gunfire is not really our thing anymore, so we don't fire bullets in the air for weddings or that sort of thing, at least not in this part of the world. But, we can still do displays of rockets and things that go boom with the best of them. And, I think that's a good thing. So I really love the 4th of July. Secondly, in recent years, I have come to have a bit of a fondness for the Washington, D.C. 4th of July Day Parade, which I participate in with the Ukrainian community, and we march. I'm not going to be doing that today because I need to go out of town for the day. But I've done it the last couple years, and I think it's kind of awesome. Although why any Ukrainian would be celebrating the 4th of July is a bit of a head scratcher right now. And I love that. I think it's great. But there's something about the 4th of July in the Trump administration, particularly in Washington, D.C., that is emotionally complicated, let's just say. Let's start with, all these routine symbols of patriotism, which I'm not opposed to. I don't like the way the left eschews patriotism. I love, I enjoy the symbols of the country. I'm as much of as capable as the next guy of a kind of rah-rah USA kind of thing. But when every expression of rah-rah USA is inflected with, and let's deport the illegals, and let's, invade Canada and take over Greenland, it gets a little bit emotionally complicated to participate in that. So that's thing number one. Thing number two is there's this, thing going on where I think of it as dogs and fire hydrants, where these clowns really like to use Washington, D.C. as their to show that they're in control and doing things. So it ranges from big flamboyant things like um, the military parade and draping Donald Trump drapes down the face of the Department of Agriculture like this is freaking North Korea. Things like that on the one hand, to, on the other hand, forcing the District of Columbia to get rid of its Black Lives Matter. This is a majority black city, remember. Black Lives Matter display on near Lafayette Square. And uh, so, uh, you know, the um, in that environment where people don't really understand, they're intentionally blurring the difference between a patriotic display and a MAGA display. And a lot of people don't really understand the difference because they've been pretty successful at blurring that distinction. You get a little bit anxious about giant downtown displays that are amenable to the interpretation that rah rah us, we're independent and deporting a lot of people, right? Now, no one's going to say that. That's not what the mall display is, but does it show pride in what we're doing if large numbers of people turn out for it and are waving the flag? I worry about that. Now, I don't go to the downtown mall thing anyway because I'm a DC person, and that's the kind of thing you do infrequently and generally with small children, of which I don't have any anymore. But I do have this instinct during these times of America under occupation and Washington really under occupation. I kind of just want to get out of town on July 4th. And I have mixed feelings about that because part of me says, wait a minute, don't leave the patriotism and the symbols of patriotism to the to those who would appropriate it, and don't leave the um and if you don't claim the symbol, you cede them to them. And I actually buy that. And so but then there's just the level at which, I actually feel like participating in a flag waving display of uh, that sort of thing. And I gotta say, um, being out of town just seems like it's more right. We are not allowed to have fun anymore, and we are on the 4th of July obliged to do meditations on symbols of patriotism under the occupation of the invading force. But we are allowed to have Anna Marie Bauer, who shows up decked out in WITAOD merch, which you can acquire if you go to the Lawfare store. Anna Bauer, good to see you.
Good to see you. My hat is still not here yet, or actually, I still haven't ordered my hat yet, which is why it's not here. But I will be ordering my hat today. That is my 4th of July task. So everyone get your WITAOD hat and we can be twins. And
I
Ben, you really got the WITAOD hat. The
yeah,
MAGA
I
WITAOD
think
hat.
I got the WITOD hat in MAGA colors because it seems to me if you're going to do a thing, you got to do it properly, and you want the MAGA people not to know it's a WITOD hat until they're staring you right in the eyes. So from a distance, they think you're on side, and then you get closer and they realize it's some acronym that they don't even know what it is. Um, how are we feeling about WITOD these days?
Well, I mean, I feel that we have ruled out a candidate, Mr. Elon Musk, who Trump threatened to let Doge eat the other day. Uh, I don't know if you saw this clip, Ben, but
No.
it was a classic Trump moment where it's both uh an incredible abuse of executive power in that he is um essentially threatening to cut off government funding for Elon Musk because Elon Musk is speaking out about the big beautiful bill, speaking out against it. But also at the same time, it is just extremely funny, the
Do you
comment.
think that um, authoritarianism um, gets like that we're actually giving it a bit of a pass because it's funny?
Yeah, I think that that's always been a huge part of Trump's appeal. Like, I think to quote you to yourself, he's a monster, but he's a funny monster. And that's kind of maybe I'm misquoting you, but I think that
Yeah,
that
I'm not sure I
was.
ever said that. It's a
I
good
think that
line
you
though.
said that.
I
No,
think it's
I'm
something
pretty.
that like I should have said.
No,
Um,
I think I have specifically because I quote you saying this to other people all the time. Um,
when did I say that? Because like,
I think that it was shortly after the election, and we were at your house talking about the election, and we were talking about the appeal of Trump to people, generally. And I think that, like, maybe I'm misremembering this, but yeah, and you were like, well, here's the thing, Trump's a monster, but he's a funny monster. Doesn't ring a
um,
bell? Maybe it wasn't
no,
you.
not at all. I mean, look, I'm happy. It's a good line, and I think you should attribute it to me. But I think we're going to shroud it in a little bit of doubt, that, this may be like, the Platonic Socrates. This may be Anna Bauer created a line and kind of attributed it to Wittis, but it's actually a Bauer-esque. It's the Bauer Wittis,
But
but
I
I'm not
don't
sure.
want to.
Anyway, it's a good line.
Yeah. Okay, but I don't want to give too much credit, like, because I find like things like what's that website, the Babylon Bee? Like, is that what it's called? I find
Yep.
that stuff just so unfunny. Like, there's just nothing funny about it to me. But I do think, like, going back to your original question, like, there are things about Trump that he sometimes is funny, like
Yeah.
his like eating the getting Doge. Maybe we'll let Doge eat Elon Musk. And so yeah, I think that it does. There's something about it that makes it more palatable to people because there are things about Trump that are funny.
Yeah. I also think that Trump is um, occasionally funny to people who hate him, but he's often funny to people who admire him.
Yeah.
And I think the one thing, like people like us who are really appalled, don't appreciate the comedy and the degree to which he is um, he is playing to people's comic sensibilities, partly because we find it so appalling that we tend to um, not take it more seriously, because I think we should take it more seriously. I think it's generally, but not appreciate the comic coded language that exists between him and his followers.
Yeah, I think that's right. Although sometimes some of the things that like that sometimes it's the opposite though, where like Trump is, I think, maybe being theatrical or funny, but his followers think that he's being serious. Uh, so I don't know. But happy 4th of July, Ben.
Yeah, happy
I
4th of
see that you are wearing, we called it MAGA red, but we could call it WITAOD hat in 4th of July red.
No, I wear this hat because it's MAGA colors, and and I bought it there. The witch toad hat, by the way, people, is available in all kinds of different color schemes, and I chose this one because it is MAGA colors, and I want people to, um, be I want people to be fooled by it so that they think I'm MAGA at a distance, and then it's not really until you're staring them in the eye and you can see the whites of their eyes that you realize that it's actually WITOD, at which point they get confused because they don't know what WITOD
Have you
means.
had people ask what it means?
Well, I haven't worn it outside the house yet. Um, I've
Oh,
only I've only worn it in um, uh, on live streams and stuff. Do
well, you
you?
should try wearing it outside of the house because I have worn this sweatshirt outside of the house and it is so interesting how many people ask what it means.
Right. So what happens? Describe a typical WITOD interaction.
So people will kind of stare at it and kind of like look very confused and then they'll go with to like they'll kind of try to pronounce it because they don't really know what it says. And then they'll go, "What does that mean? I've been trying to figure it out."
And what have you uh, had anybody recognize it and say, "Oh, WITOD"?
No, because I've been in Georgia and so like in my hometown where I feel like it's
There just
not
aren't many
like
WITODlings.
yeah, there's not many Witoadlings. Shockingly, even though I'm the leader of the cult, in my hometown, I can't get enough Witoadlings together for the cult. So, I think though, I'll be in DC some this week, and so I think that maybe that is where I will get my next in real life with toadling interaction. So I'll have to wear this or wear a hat.
And and tell me, Gainesville, Georgia has a very dramatic Christmas tradition, which is lighting a giant chicken on the roof
Oh
of.
yeah, didn't we play the chicken lighting on Dog Shirt one day?
We did.
Oh yeah.
And so,
Okay.
like, what does Gainesville do for the 4th of July?
We don't
Is
do anything for the 4th of July.
really
You would
it's
think we would have a big giant
chicken
chicken
fireworks
fireworks
display?
event. Actually I'm gonna have to talk to someone about this. Maybe it's just we're never around for my family's never around for the 4th of July, so maybe I'm missing out on all the Gainesville chicken themed 4th of July activities. But yeah, you would think that we would have a big chicken related, but here's the thing. The chicken is pretty like you don't really perceive it during the summer months because of course it's not lighted because we have the great chicken lighting in November, which is when the chicken really, and it's kind of a seasonal thing. Like you can only see the chicken at night when, it's from like November until January. So personally, I think they should keep the chicken lighted year round in
No,
Gainesville.
but then you wouldn't have a chicken lighting.
But yeah, but we would have maybe we could have a week where we turn it off and then we turn it back on because I just love the chicken and I guess it would be a waste of power, energy. Like
Yeah,
it's,
but you could do it with solar power. I mean,
yeah.
these things are doable now. If the town were really committed to the lighted chicken bit as a year-round thing, but I think a seasonal lighted chicken where everybody gathers to cheer for the lighting of the chicken, I think that's uh more valuable than the like August lit chicken nights.
Yeah, I think, or at the very least, what you could do is have the chicken be kind of like in white lighting the whole year, and then around Christmas time, if you wanted to make the lighting like a big deal, you like do it up in like Christmas lights kind of thing, and then
I
that's
think
the lighting of the chicken.
I think that Gainesville should come into the 21st century and have, a 50,000 drone chicken, flying chicken display.
That would be
Um,
incredible.
you know,
Have I ever told you about the chicken statue we have in front of the IHOP?
no.
We have a chicken statue in front of the IHOP, and it's like a very tall, like it's like a very tall pillar, or like I don't know whether there's a word for a statue that's like on like tall pillar, and then at the very
A
top,
pedestal?
a pedestal. Thank
You
you.
guys
And
put a chicken on a pedestal.
yeah, literally there's a chicken that's like made out of bronze or something that's like, normal chicken size and it's on top of this like massive pedestal in front of the IHOP and they have a little plaque out there.
Well, and
They
what does the plaque say? Because,
well,
I think
but I
from
thought
a
to tell
chicken's
you.
perspective, all of this is like, you know, they kill us for a living and chop us up into parts, and then the live one is the symbol of the town. But like, don't make, this is like, chickens tell their chicks horror stories. Don't be a bad chick or you'll be sent to Gainesville. And it's like,
Because right, because I don't know if I've clarified this before. Gainesville is the self-proclaimed chicken capital of the world, but it's not the chicken capital of the world. Everyone always confuses this. They think, oh, you must have so many chicken farms where chickens are being raised around Gainesville.
it's really the
No, no,
chicken
no.
processing.
It's the chicken processing capital of the world. So when you roll into town, you're like, what's that smell? And you look up and it's the chicken factories that are cutting up the little chickens and then, packaging them and stuff. This plaque, acknowledges that Gainesville is the chicken processing capital of the world, and it discusses Gainesville's history with chicken processing. And one of the things that it says that is always hilarious to me when I read it is that Gainesville did for chicken processing what Ford did for the automobile. And
Wow.
because apparently the guy who like came up with the chicken factories, it previously didn't have assembly lines or something. So yeah,
That was the golden age for the chickens
the
before
golden
the
age for
assembly
the
line
chicken.
when you had to kill them and dismember them one by one in a non-industrial fashion.
Yeah, but anyway, so that's Gainesville. What are the Wittis July 4th traditions?
Well, so the last 2 years, I have marched in the July 4th parade as part of the Ukrainian delegation,
Oh, that's
which
cool.
has been super, super fun. And I have loved it. And I'm not doing it this year because I have to split town to deal with some stuff. But that has been and then in the evenings, there are these secret spots that are not so secret that you can go watch the fireworks uh, um, without killing yourself. And one of my favorite is to put a kayak in the Potomac River and float down to the mall area and do it from the water. And so for a couple of years, I had this thing where I would get barbecue and a bottle of wine and a couple friends. And I have a bunch of kayaks, and we would just float down together and do that. But that's time-consuming evening activity because it actually takes a little bit to get down there, and then more to the point, it's quite a paddle to get back because the depending on how much it's rained, the Potomac actually has some real current down there
Yeah, and also paddling back against the current in the Potomac after
at
you've
night.
been had yeah, at night after you've had a bottle of wine does not sound
Well, so
does not
it's
sound
very doable. It's not dangerous or anything. The only danger of it is that a lot of people with pleasure boats do the same thing, and so it's the one time of year that you have these kind of gatherings of biggish boats, some of whose people on them are really quite drunk, and they're not always the best boating neighbors. But it is a great way to see the fireworks. You get way closer to them than you do any other way, and you can kind of just lie back and be under them, and it's really great fun. So those are my go-to ways, but I'm not doing any of that this year. I am splitting town. We'll be back tomorrow in time for a special military operation um, uh, to object to the cutoff of interceptors to Ukraine, but that will be tomorrow on the 5th of July, not today.
fun. That sounds like a good 4th of July. I plan today to, you know, that my mission this summer, because I have a grill now, is to become a grill girly. And so as soon as we're done with this live stream, I'm gonna go to the grocery store. I'm gonna get a bagel. I'm gonna go to the grocery store and I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna grill today.
And who are you grilling for?
So,
Just
well,
yourself, or
I will
are
be
you
grilling
having?
this afternoon for myself, but I have to grill. My friend is having people over to her own grill. So I have like double grills, like a double grill situation today because I want to grill something for myself for lunch. And then this afternoon, after my friend gets done, one of my friends is a criminal defense attorney who has arraignment duty on the 4th of July. And whenever she's done with arraignments, she's having a bunch of us over to her house, to sit on her roof and grill. It's a bring your own grill meat situation. So I'm going to prepare whatever it is that I'm grilling. I think I'm going
I
to do
think you kind
skirts.
of are obligated by your heritage to grill chicken, no?
Oh, yeah, I don't like grilling chicken though. I don't know. I feel like I haven't done found the right way to do it yet. It always feels like it's like I know there's no wrong way to grill chicken really as long as you cook it. But I feel
Yeah,
like it's like
the
I'm
wrong way is under grilling.
yeah, but I'm wanting to do like when I say I want to be a grill girly, I want to be one of those people who's like doing the handmade marinades with like the fancy, like I want like something interesting, and I feel like I haven't. I guess grilled corn and grilled chicken would be good. But yeah, I'm still figuring it out. Oh, hey, John.
Good morning, Anna. Yeah, I hear grilling poultry is tricky. My New York neighbor who did it recently recommends baking it first and then, and marinating and all that stuff. And then, because poultry has all kinds of nasty stuff in it.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm more of one thing I'm really liking grilling right now is skirt steak because you can marinate it and then there's this really good, okay, this sounds insane, because you're kind of like, why would skirt steak be good with cheddar cheese? But there's this New York Times cooking recipe that is a salad that's like basil with tomato, cheddar cheese, shallots, and then like a red wine vinaigrette. And you put some skirt steak with that salad, and it is, I'm telling you, it's incredible. So
You want to
you
hear?
heard it here first, people.
You want to
Try
hear a
it.
really good grill trick that is like it'll change your life?
Yeah.
Okay, grill and sous vide.
Oh
So,
yeah, I've heard about. See, this is what I want to do, Ben. I want to be a fancy sous vide type of griller.
okay, so here's what you do. You take a like a rough cut of meat, something that should be too tough that you're not going to be able to get away with grilling, like a brisket or something, and you sous vide it for 3 days. Um, and so it's like crazy tender, but it's also uh um you know not that well cooked. It's like 130 degrees on the inside, and then you flash grill it with a lot of smoke for a relatively short period of time, um, you know, 20 minutes or something, 30 minutes. And you will be amazed at how good it is.
Okay, I'm gonna try it. I gotta get one of those sous vide
They're
things
cheap.
though.
They're like, you can get one for 50, $60. You get some bags. Alan Rosenstein calls it boiled bag meat, which gives it a really good, makes it sound really excellent. It's really like the combination of a hot flame for finishing the outside and a slow cook is really amazing.
Cool. I'm also, if anyone has tips, I'm considering becoming a, because I have this porch now, not for much longer because my lease is up at the end of August, but I have a porch that has planters on it. I don't know if that is enough time to grow anything, but if I can grow something like a tomato or something, that'd be
You can
cool.
grow a tomato in a few months, in
Okay,
a in
cool.
a few weeks. Yeah,
John, are you
tomatoes grow really
Canadian?
fast.
No, but I have some friends who are, and they gave me a flag, and I just thought
Okay.
because Ev and Alicia didn't show up on Canada Day on this show, that it was important for me to support them.
Very cool. I don't know anything about Canada Day.
Well, it was a couple days ago, and I think
Well, note the
people.
coloration is consistent with the WITAOD hat. So I did uh, show up because I wanted to address the WITAOD heterodoxy issue, if I
Oh
could.
gosh, I knew this was coming.
No, well, I
All
don't
right.
think you'll be upset by my position,
What's
but
the position?
about the apostasy, the schism, the heresy. So my thinking on this is under a framework that I call Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of an unpronounceable acronym. Because they are just famous for naming legislation with all kinds of goofy things that are not even acronyms because acronyms have to be pronounceable, like initialisms. I don't know if a word that looks like an acronym that we pronounce it like one, but we don't pronounce it how it's spelled. I don't know if that constitutes an acronym or not. But anyway, I just want to say, first of all, I support you, Anna, in the use of toad. I love spoonerisms. They're like a deliberate, mispronunciation in a particular form. Wenjamin Bittis, Banna Hour, that I just love that. So I view the TOAD pronunciation, versus TAOD. It's like the dyslexic adjacent version of spoonerism, and I'm here for that.
I do really like whenever I see you in the chat writing "we toad" like WEE
Well,
toad.
if
It
you
is
look down
very
at my
funny. Like
my
it.
Chiron,
Oh, I see. I do think that it's hilarious to read it that way because it makes me think of like a tiny little frog,
maybe
which is
a
just
tiny quad frog.
So all right, Ben, what's your take
Oh,
on
hang on.
the
So but my only quibble with you, Anna,
oh,
then is
okay.
about, we, you know,
We.
right. And I just have to say, we toad is cuter than WITAOD, and to me that just.
Well, but WITOD is, it's the wittices. It's
Oh,
that
I hear
I
you.
think is,
Right. I
it's
mean,
an
you can be
ode to
witty
the
or you can be
wittices.
cute. Pick one, or I need a third one, so we could say pick two.
Ben, what's your
Yeah.
take?
Well, first of all, I really think it's important to pronounce the question mark that whenever
Yeah,
you
you got to
say
have the like we toad?
exactly that it should come off as a question all the time. Widowed? Um, and that's my main feeling about it. I have to say, um, I have been um I've literally spent my whole life trying to convince people that WIT is pronounced wit, not white or
We saw this with Ben Weisner.
exactly or why, and so it would be deeply, deeply hypocritical for me to sign on to a Y toad or a so I gotta go with Anna on the Witode thing. But I'm not convinced that TAOD should be pronounced toad. Um,
Oh,
What? That is crazy.
and I have to say that my instinct is that the whole thing should be pronounced without, um, and
Which town?
without but always as a question. And so look, I accept that there are things that I am the leader of, like lawfare and special military operations, whatever, and things that I'm not the leader of, like the Witoad cult. And so I do accept Anna's authority on these matters. That said, I in my heart it is Witoad.
Okay, fair. I
this is
once again
shocking.
just want to say I'm a benevolent cult leader and I don't get into these issues amongst the followers about the preferred pronunciation. So you can pronounce it however you'd like to pronounce it. But, you know, if you are someone, and I encourage people, if they see me in the wild, to come up to me and say "Watoad" to my face with absolutely no introduction.
How many
So
times
just
has that happened?
well, no one has actually come up to me and yelled like "Watoad," which I think would be really fun. But someone did come up to me once and say, "Who is the administrator of Doge?" when I was in a bar in DC with Quinta and Tyler and some other lawfare folks. So I think that contextually,
Yeah, that's
I was
pretty
easy to
close. That's
spot
a
because I was
spiritual.
with, other lawfare folks.
Okay, so here's my uh, deep anxiety about the Witoad movement.
Okay, what, that it's over?
Well, is it over? Is Doge kind of
Is
like
Doge over? I think it depends on if Doge is over. Like, how can you have an administrator? How can you have a mystery around who the administrator is because like when we published the piece, it was like unclear if what Doge was going to become.
right? And
And
it seems to be just fading away, right? Although Big Balls is now at a different agency, what do we know about the current status of Doge?
well, so we know that a number of them who were the kind of, known figures have left. Obviously, Elon has left. There are people like, Big Balls and Edward Corin. I think Corin, is that the guy that's Big
Isn't
Balls?
that
I
big
keep
balls?
I
forgetting.
can't tell them apart.
I think it
Yeah.
Um,
is.
What?
I think it is
I
him.
think that's
Yes.
Yeah.
big balls, yeah. And then yeah. And there's like the Nate Kavanaughs of the world, who's the guy they put in charge of USIP and stuff. And there are people who I'm not entirely sure what has happened to them. One person who I really would like to know what is happening with them now is oh gosh, I'm blanking on his name, but there was one of the core DOGE guys who was scheduled to clerk for Justice Gorsuch in the next Supreme Court clerk term. And that the clerks are supposed to do their turnover very soon now that the term is over. I think that the new clerks usually come in July, so that they can kind of get settled while the justices are on vacation. Um, but I am very curious to see if that clerkship will still go forward, because obviously Justice Gorsuch is going to have a number of DOGE cases, including I think some of these cases, one of the guy who's supposed to clerk for him is the named defendant in the case, or one of the named defendants. But to the question of what is happening with these people, some of them have left. I think some of them are at other agencies. There are certain agencies that had more of a DOGE infiltration than others. So GSA is one that was like very DOGE heavy. So DOGE has, I think, been kind of mainstreamed into GSA and some of these
It's
other
become a way of
agencies.
life.
Yeah, it's become, like Elon said, it's a way of life.
And ways of life generally don't have administrators.
Right. It is kind of like, it's a spiritual movement, as Elon said, or
Yeah.
something to that effect. But so yeah, Ben, I don't know, is WITAOD over? I think WITAOD
I mean, it was like just getting started.
because you think WITAOD is just getting started.
I think as long as there is active DOGE litigation,
I agree.
we can pronounce as just a matter of diktat that the WITOD is not dead.
WITAOD, as long as there is litigation, will never be dead, because we're not just asking who is the administrator. We're asking who was the administrator when USAID was brought down, that kind
You
of
might need
thing.
an
Yeah.
Oh,
entire new
Jacob
line of
Altick, thank you, Andrew. I forgot his name. I for a moment wanted to confuse him with my former classmate Jeremy Lewin, but Jeremy Lewin is the one who helped dismantle USAID. Jacob Altick is the one who will potentially be clerking for Justice Gorsuch. We will see.
And did you know Jeremy Lewin in law school?
I knew of him. It was he was not in my section. We had mutual friends. But I did not, he was not someone that I was friends with on a one-on-one basis.
And what is the like chatter when when everybody gets together in the HLS class of whatever you were, group chats and gossips about each other? Like, are people, is there Doge FOMO among your cohort? Like, people are like, wow, if I had been cooler, I could have dismantled a federal agency. Or is there like contempt for him? Or is there like, I mean, I, for those of you who don't know Harvard Law School, this is one of the most star fucking places in the world. And, merely being the sort of person who's in the news for dismantling a federal agency is kind of, it's going to get you caught between the, oh my God, I'm such a nobody, I'm turning 30 and I haven't dismantled a federal agency yet, people, and the kind of, uh, left of center, uh, uh, woke PC crowd. So, like, what's the reaction to Jeremy Lewin? Is it cool to be a Doge boy, or is it uncool?
It's extreme. Look, I need to preface this by saying that it's like my impression of this is coming from the group chats that I'm in with my friends from law school, and my friends from law school are not the type of as accomplished and successful and brilliant as they are. They are not the type of people who like uh I don't think that just having a powerful position in their eyes is not the kind of thing that they would see as, you know, they're not typical Harvard law
So I
students
mean,
or
if
alumni in
you
that.
get to be
So
a partner at the law firm of Satan, and
yeah.
Beelzebub, very young, like a 28-year-old partner
Yeah, my
at
friends are not going to be
that's
impressed
not
by
impressed.
that. No.
Okay.
And the general reaction I will say is like one of the most common ones amongst various friend groups is none of us should be responsible for a federal agency like USAID. Because we like my entering class was class of 2022, and I think that everyone kind of has this uh uh like reaction like some of them are just finishing their district court clerkships, you know what I mean? It's like um they like it doesn't feel like the type of thing that when you're 2 or 3 years out of law school, you have no background as far as I'm aware for in Jeremy Lewin's case, uh in federal aid, foreign aid work,
Or
uh,
administering an
or
agency.
yeah, like management experience. I don't know what he, as far as I know, he was an RA for Lawrence Tribe, and like then he like I think worked at a firm, and it just really uh and clerked, I think, but it's like it just seems like the kind of thing where it's like, why would you put a 2022 law graduate in charge of USAID?
And and do we have any sense of what the answer to that question is? Like, what's the mechanism by which, Elon Musk or somebody else or the Trump transition team, somebody went around and said, who's the right person who's qualified by whatever metric to be our hatchet man here? And decided on this guy. Do we have any idea how that happened?
We don't have any idea in terms of, same with like some of these other people who were installed, like Nate Kavanaugh, who was one of the, 20 something DOGE bros who was put in charge of the United States Institute of Peace or for
But we
peace. Is
do
it of
know in the
peace?
case of
But
Big Balls, right, that he's like some kind of teenager hacker, coder type who's been attached to Elon for a little while.
yeah. So some of these people we kind of know their connections to uh Elon world, but in terms of like, because there's a difference between like, were you hired to work at Doge versus were you hired, and then like, I mean, Nate Kavanaugh and Jeremy Lewin were put in charge as like the administrators of these organizations. I don't think that Big Balls ever got, to administrator level status. But my assumption, Ben, is that these are people who are willing to carry out whatever the, whims and wishes were of whoever it is that was calling the shots. We do have a sense that Justin Gray, in the case of USAID, I think that's who it was, and maybe I'm getting the name wrong, but who was initially the Trump selected USAID administrator, eventually got to a point where he wasn't he was in charge of USAID, but he was not, getting into arguments about what they were doing with the dismantling of USAID, and so ultimately got the axe, or was, kind of forced out. So yeah, we don't know. We only have 10 minutes left, and I want to ask you about something, Ben, that
All
I'm
right.
curious for your thoughts on it. Changing the subject. And I don't know that you've read it, but I woke up this morning and saw that the discourse this morning is all about the New York Times article about Zohran Mamdani's college application. What are your thoughts, as someone who is kind of an occasional media critic, or uses a media critic lens sometimes in your writing? What are your thoughts on the way the Times handled the story?
Okay, so I want to preface this by saying I have not read the story because I deeply don't care about who the mayor of New York is. I also deeply don't care about how a 33-year-old represented himself in his college applications. Um, and um, and so um, I am I think it's a um uh but I am aware of, as you call it, the discourse as a result of, you know, people started yelling about it almost immediately after the story ran, I guess yesterday afternoon. Um, so look, I think, um, so based on my ambient perception of the story, um, is it well, let's start with Mamdami's comments, or conduct. Is it reasonable to describe yourself as an African American and an Asian American if you are born in Uganda as an Indian Muslim, moved to the United States as a small child, um, uh, and grow up in the United States?
And
Yes.
by the way, is a dual citizen of Uganda and the
Yeah.
United
It,
States.
it is literally true. And by the way, I these terms that we use for diversity purposes, are are they have no literal meaning, right? I mean, to say somebody is an African American, what about, my sometime co-host Holly Berkeley Fletcher, who grew up in Kenya? She's, really, really white, but she's, grew up there, calls it home. And so is it what the question was asking? No. Is it uh, literally accurate and inherently, is it a reasonable way for him to describe himself, given that there's no checkbox for, it's cheeky, but I don't really have a problem with it. Now, is it so that's with the so to the extent that the story has a flavor of he did something wrong, like for example Elizabeth Warren describing herself as Native American when she's not. Um, uh, I think that's inappropriate of them, to the extent that they did that. Again, I haven't read the story, so I don't know. Is the larger point is that the question is trivial, right? Like, what? All right, given that this was a literally accurate but somewhat misleading for within the sense of what the question was asking way to describe yourself, and that that kind of cheeky stuff is the stuff that 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds A do, B should do, And so like what turns on this question at
Yeah.
all?
Well, and just to like also fill in a few things too, like he wrote like where there was like a line, he says that he wrote in, Ugandan to like be more specific, I guess, about his background. But like I agree, it's completely trivial. He didn't receive like it's about his application to Columbia too. Like this is just I'm just adding in some other details that just kind of go to the trivialness of it. This was about his application to Columbia, which he didn't get into and didn't end up going to. He went to Bowdoin. And it like it's not there's nothing in the article that suggests that this him describing himself in this way is in any way contradictory or hypocritical in terms of what his political or public positions are or the way he has presented himself throughout his campaign. If anything, it's consistent with the way that he has described himself when he talks about his background.
I mean,
It's so it's
take it out of that context, put it in the context of, say, me. Um, I am Ashkenazic Jewish. Ashkenazic Jews come from Eastern Europe. Um, Almost all Ashkenazic Jews will describe themselves as Jewish Americans or American Jews. But there are these occasional ones who will say, I'm Polish American, meaning that their family comes from Poland. It's not a crazy thing. Every other ethnic group in the world identifies by where their family comes from. Interestingly, except Black people, which is this, which gives rise to the Zoran Mandami question, right? But, if I had said if I on something cheekily filled out that I was Polish American or Russian American because my family was from the Russian Empire, Imperial Russia, like it's not a lie. It's not misrepresenting anything. It's a how you craft your identity thing. Um,
yeah.
and I just I don't want to fight with I don't think the New York Times should be in the business of questioning people's constructions of their identities. And by the way, um, you know, like people do that all the time. They call themselves blank because their mother's family is blank or because their father's family is blank, but the other side of their family is something completely different, right? Um, there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing too about this story that maybe you aren't aware of because you haven't read it
Yeah,
is
because I'm
that
just making
they
all this up.
they the New York Times, the way they reported this story was by reporting on and using hacked materials from a hack of Columbia University. And those materials of these, which included this application that showed that, this box was checked or whatever, were then obtained by a guy who is named Jonathan Lasker, I think, who is reportedly someone who I have not looked into this at all or no, I have no idea who he is, but he's a Substacker who, according to The Guardian, has expressed eugenicist views in the past, and writes a lot about like I think the Times described him as like writing about the relationship between race and IQ or something. But
That's healthy.
they yeah. But the Times says, we obtained these hacked materials from a Substacker named, and they named the Substack, but then they say who who asked to be not identified by his real name, which, the Times agreed to not identify him. So the Times isn't even reporting on the name of the person who they got the hacked materials from, even though they're publicly identifying his Substack. And it's all just a very weird kind of like the provenance of all of this it seems to be very weird.
So
And not
all of that could be justified if the story were important.
right,
But
I
but
agree.
like, you know, I mean, newspapers deal in purloined materials from disreputable sources all the time. And in and of itself, that doesn't particularly bother me, though
Right.
it often raises ethical issues that need to be sorted through. What does bother me is that the story is trivial, and I do think that there's a higher bar for the engagement with that sort of material when, when the product is deeply unimportant.
I
We're going to
agree.
leave it there. The
Okay, I'm gonna go get
question,
some stuff to grill
the question remains:
with Toad.
WITAOD. Um, Anna's going to grill. I'm going to flee town. Um, we're going to be back on Monday. I don't know who the hosts are going to be. I don't know who the guest is going to be, but you'll be there. I'll be there. And the cactus will be charged.